Hi guys, welcome to this tutorial on describing management styles and structures. So again, we come back to this idea that precise vocabulary is very important for both competence and your credibility within an organization in an English-speaking environment. Clear professional communication allows managers to express ideas clearly, ensuring understanding and professionalism in all interactions. Accurate organization description demonstrates your knowledge and authority, help building credibility with colleagues and stakeholders. Within different contexts, effective vocabulary aids communication in meetings, reports, interviews, leadership discussions, making interactions more productive and again enhancing your credibility. So the type of terms when it comes to describing management structures, leadership, words and phrases like hierarchy, authority, autonomy, delegation, feedback loop. This is the type of high-level vocabulary that you're going to want to know in order to express concepts clearly and credibly in that work environment. Using the right language projects confidence and competence, essential for influencing and leading teams successfully and often getting the job in the first place. So two pieces of vocabulary that are important to know because they describe different management structures. We have what's called a hierarchical structure and we have what's called a flat structure. So the hierarchical structure features a chain of command from the CEO to managers to employees, probably other substrata as well. Emphasizes hierarchy, reporting lines, and accountability. That's what you sort of think of the traditional construct of a big business, right? A few people, one person right at the top, a few people under him or her, another layer under that, probably some different management layers, middle management, and then a larger amount of workers under that. And within the workers are probably sub-hierarchies and substrata too. Flat structure, on the other hand, has fewer management layers, encouraging more collaboration, flexibility, and open communication across teams with less rigid hierarchy. Smaller companies won't have the same hierarchy as bigger companies because it's not necessarily practical. So maybe be one manager, one or two assistant managers, and then under that, everyone sort of sits in parallel. And maybe different areas, different projects, different departments, but without much of a hierarchy. So we get hierarchical structure and we get flat structure. We're moving on to think about authority and decision making. So authority is, quick definition first of all, is the power to make decisions and give orders within an organization. It ensures that tasks are directed and completed efficiently. So obviously different individuals have different levels of authority, both over people and or goals or projects. Responsibility is slightly different. That is the obligation to complete assigned tasks and report on the outcomes, and it holds individuals accountable for the work. Delegation involves assigning authority or responsibility to others, enabling managers to distribute workloads and empower team members. So language focus and vocabulary here, for example, I report to the regional manager, she delegated the task to her assistant. Key vocabulary around this: authority, responsibility, delegate, empowerment. So authority is in who is in charge of what, responsibility is who has to do what, and delegation is when someone decides who is in charge of what and who has to do what. So delegation is assigning authority or responsibility. We're thinking about the concepts of autonomy and control. So autonomy means having the freedom to make decisions independently, allowing employees to manage their own tasks and work methods. Some companies have more autonomy, some companies have less autonomy. Micromanagement has a negative connotation. It's over-controlling leadership style where leaders excessively oversee and control employees' work, limiting independence. So the managers don't trust the employees to do the job properly themselves without intensive and probably excessive supervision. Empowerment encourages employees to take ownership and responsibility for their work, fostering confidence and initiative. Something you guys can think about is what level of autonomy do you prefer at work? Or if you're in management, what level of autonomy do you prefer your staff to have and why? So consider how much freedom versus guidance helps you perform best, or helps your team perform best, and why you think that is. Because sometimes autonomy is more desirable, sometimes not. It can depend very much on circumstances. We also have what are called communication structures. We have formal communication that uses official channels like meetings and reports to ensure structured, documented exchanges. So There'll be formal meetings scheduled and minutes will be taken at those meetings, for example. Informal communication involves quick personal exchanges such as chats and calls for immediate flexible interaction. Communication flow directions: information moves upwards, downwards, or laterally across departments. So it can move up the hierarchy, down the hierarchy, or horizontally, let's say, across different departments. In terms of formal communication versus informal communication, it depends again very much on circumstances which of these is the more desirable. As a general rule, the bigger the business, the more formal communication will be necessary. Again, we can link this back to concepts that we saw in a different tutorial, which is different management styles. So we have the autocratic style, which is characterized by centralized authority and low autonomy for workers. This style relies on direct leadership, where decisions are made by one person. The democratic style emphasizes shared decision-making and open communication, promoting participative involvement from team members. Laissez-faire style offers high autonomy with minimal supervision, allowing employees to work independently and take initiative. Transformational style inspires through vision and motivation, encouraging innovative thinking and personal development within the team. Directive and visionary style relates to clear guidance and control, while visionary describes inspiring long-term goals and strategies. So it's always worth thinking about, anytime you guys come across new vocabulary in this course, how could you use it in real life to describe your work situation? So how would you describe your organization? For example, you could say things like, our company has a flat structure with open communication. Managers are encouraged to delegate tasks effectively. We have a strong feedback culture that values employee output. So you can think about, are these three statements true of your organization? If not, what would the true alternatives be? We can think about how we can apply this management vocabulary. So things such as structure, delegate, feedback. These are the type of business specific words that we associate with management. So something you guys can try and do is think how you would describe your current and or your ideal work environment. You can maybe think about how these two things contrast. What is your current work environment and how would that compare and contrast to your ideal work environment? So think about how you would use these words and phrases that we've seen in this tutorial, and if you've also worked through the other tutorials in this unit, how you would apply that vocabulary too. So key takeaways around this: organizational structure. Every organization has its unique structure, tone, and management style that shapes how teams operate and communicate. There's a need to balance authority and autonomy. Strong leaders maintain a balance between exercising authority and granting autonomy, and a good leader, a good manager, recognizes when it's time for one and time for the other, and to what degree. We looked at key phrases, key vocabulary like hierarchy, authority, autonomy, feedback loop, delegation, empowerment. And a big question you can ask yourself is, how would you describe your management style in English, or how would you describe the management style of your organization in English, and how does that compare to what your ideal style or structure would be? Final word on this is, clear organizational structures foster clarity in communication, reducing misunderstandings and enhancing teamwork. So it's about precision, and it's also about tone as well, as we touched on earlier in this unit. Thank you very much, guys. I'll see you in the next one.